Oh, hello. I'm just reading about Apostle Paul and Priscilla and Aquila and being amazed at what an incredible team they were in spreading the gospel to so many places and moving quickly from place to place, being literally living a nomadic life and just going where the gospel was needed and winning people over to Jesus and also making disciples and starting churches. It's a pretty good introduction to this seminar session that I'm doing. Just going to make sure that we have the timing right here. All right, my name is Ari Rocklin. I am working with Global Intent for the last 20 years, and the topic today is the missional nomad life, and we are going to borrow on the digital nomad theme for this session. If you want a copy of this presentation, just send me an email. I would be happy to email it to you, either as a PDF or as a presentation, up to you. So, just an overview. I'm going to introduce myself briefly, then we're going to look at what a digital nomad is, and what is a missional nomad tent maker, introducing a new concept perhaps for many, and then looking at the ministry models that one can do as a missional nomad. And then I'm going to give you some resources, and Q&A unfortunately will have to be done via email, and I'll leave the last slide up for links. So, I'm a Canadian born into a Karelian refugee family. I was a missionary to India as a single man, and then together with my wife and 2 children, we were tent makers to Asia. And I've been mobilizing tent makers full-time since 1998, and I am currently the International Director of Global Intent, which we will hear more about a little bit later. But let's go back to who Apostle Paul was. He was the tent maker of Tarsus. In that one sentence, we learned what he did, what his name was, and where he was from. I like that progress there. And because Paul was a tent maker, as were Aquila and Priscilla, he stayed and worked with them at their tent making business. Now, what does today's tent maker look like? Around 2019, 2020, 2021, and because John was an English teacher, as were James and Nora, he stayed and worked at their English school. Now, why do I use this example? Because ESL teachers are all over the world, and they have access to most countries, and the tent makers we have worked with, the vast majority of them are ESL teachers of some kind. So then what are digital nomads? Perhaps you've heard about this. If not, I urge you to search the internet on digital nomads. You will be amazed at how much information, how many websites and blogs are devoted to this phenomenon. So digital nomads are people who use telecommunications technologies to earn a living and more generally conduct their life in a nomadic manner. This trend allows them to become location independent and move between cities and countries while working remotely. Keyword, working remotely. Again, search digital nomad for more information on this. However, we want to move on to what the topic at hand is. Digital nomads are free to travel and experience new cultures while being supported by their online jobs. An increasing number of retired people are also doing this while being partially supported by their pension plans. This allows them to go to countries perhaps where incomes are low, or they only have a part-time or casual job online to supplement their pension plans. Remote work has increased by 87% in the last few years. If you want to look up the statistic, just look at remote work increase, and there will be many research papers on this phenomenon that is happening today. I want to point you to something really exciting that I found. It's called nomadlist.com. I urge you, after you've taken this seminar, to go to this website and just get excited about the possibilities and opportunities that are out there in the world. Nomadlist.com displays every country in the world and what it's like to work there as a digital nomad. You'll see country profiles, and you'll see information about each of these countries, and really nicely laid out. And also you will see all the different offerings in these countries: safety, internet speeds, how much it's going to cost you per month for living and for housing and for food, etc., etc. There's just so much vast amount of information to allow you to make a good decision or where you might want to choose to be a missional nomad. So anyway, we talked about digital nomads, But what I want to get to is missional nomads. And then I want to get to working abroad, making disciples. Because if you're a missional nomad, that should be your goal, to work abroad somewhere and make disciples. So missional nomads, just like digital nomads, are people who use telecommunications technologies to earn a living and conduct their life in a nomadic manner. However, additionally, as they go, they desire to live missionally and seek to make disciples. So the whole thing there is intent. You do not just want to go overseas for the excitement and adventure. You also want to make sure that you're seeking to make disciples, and that should be every Christian's focus in their life, no matter where they are. So the missional nomad lifestyle is working remotely to sustain a nomadic life. You are location independent. You can go anywhere in the world. You're financially independent. You don't have to do fundraising. The missional lifestyle integrates faith and life. Here's a quote: "Missional nomads travel the world while intentionally seeking to make disciples." If there's a tagline for this session, that last one on the bottom would be it. Missional nomads travel the world while intentionally seeking to make disciples. So what are the realities? Short stays. People don't stay long in one place. Often they cannot stay because of visa restrictions. So what that short stay should do is create in you an urgency on seeing how can I impact the people around me in this new community for a time. How do I impact them for the gospel? How do I bring Jesus into the formula of everyday life? Planting a church is probably not realistic, but it is obviously possible because God is greater than all our plans. So having the focus of planting a church may be not for everyone, but if God allows you to do that, by all means. Mostly it's about friendship, evangelism, and discipleship, and meeting in communities to study the teachings of Jesus. Volunteering with a local church if there is one. Obviously you want to go to a church if there is one, and sometimes they welcome people from other countries to help out. Sometimes they prefer you sit in the background, find out how your talents are or are not needed. Then there's missional nomads in restricted nations. These are the nations that do not allow any kind of proselytizing. They don't allow missionaries. They don't allow any kind of overt converting of people. They don't allow churches to be built, and meetings were mostly are going to be restricted to homes. So if missional nomads go to countries where proselytizing is against the law, it becomes challenging and possibly dangerous to do evangelism as they have learned in their home countries. But there are always ways to plant seeds and live a lifestyle that elicits questions about faith matters. Retirees who love to travel. I also call them snowbirds, a very common term, especially here in Canada. How many people do you know who spend winters in a warm place? I know many. Perhaps you're one of them. There's nothing wrong with enjoying beach time, playing golf, pursuing hobbies, and getting to know people. As a matter of fact, one retired tent maker told me that when he retired to a warm place, he realized that playing golf all the time wasn't all he had thought it would be. And he had then started pursuing other hobbies. And in that new hobby, he was able to attract local people to pursue this hobby with him. And with that, he was able to start a Bible study group. But what if you could do a bit more than just be a snowbird and enjoying the warmth of a different country? You already meet new people. You spend time with them. You may also notice people whom you could help in some way. It might be helping people do grocery shopping. It may be whatever it is that you notice that your help would be valuable. So adding value to your stay as a snowbird should be one of your focuses. And of course, through this, hoping to earn the right to speak into people's hearts about your faith. And then the retirees who love to travel. Do you dare to ask God how he could use you in planting seeds of faith? I keep hearing stories and stories, especially on Facebook, about retired people who traveled extensively and are enjoying it so much. I rarely hear anything that they have done something to impact God's kingdom during their travels. It is not a matter of how skillful you are. It is a matter of making it one of your priorities. When I travel, how do I bring God's kingdom to this place? In what ways can I do it? It just requires you to have that intentionality. Retired nomads have even more time than those who have to make a living through their digital nomad life, obviously because they're not stuck to working. So next time the snowbirds travel somewhere, take it up to a new level for the benefit of God's kingdom. So what are the benefits of missional nomads? We've already touched on this. No fundraising for mission. Fundraising is the big block that keeps a lot of people from even pursuing missions. Well, being a missional nomad, you don't have to worry about that. Visa issuers are almost non-existent, and if they are, they're minimal. Natural relationships with the people you end up working with. A legitimate identity. Everybody knows why you're there, what you're doing. Able to involve in all levels of ministry, pioneer work to local church involvement. You can just basically find out how you can be doing this ministry in a place that you are working in. And of course, we'll have ministry to local people and the digital nomad community. And if you read about digital nomads, you will find out that very many of them are very totally unbelievers and perhaps even anti-Christian. So that would be a whole new ministry area for you. Short terms should also add focus and urgency to your mission. More benefits. You can continue to pursue your love of travel and love about learning about new cultures. And as you get to know people in their own communities, and that is always the most rewarding way to learn about a culture. Being a missional nomad while desiring to make Jesus known gives you a valid platform while living missionally among the unreached. So let me just show you a very simple mission strategy that you might want to copy. As you go to a new place and set up your new workplace and you learn to know your community, you're going to make relationships. That's going to be an automatic. You have to interact with people. This is not difficult. They're natural. They're part of the process of living in a new place, and they bring great joy and great also challenges, but they are natural. They just happen. So purposefully befriend and invest time in people. Get involved in their lives. Start initiatives that will help them. Meet regularly in the same places like a cafe so that you get to know the people, you get to know the owners and the staff. Become a regular customer in stores so that you are developing this new community around you where you get to know people by name and they get to know you. Learn to answer questions, as many people will ask about your lifestyle, and perhaps they will even ask you about your beliefs. Share your story when you have an opportunity. Always be ready to share your story. The second part is hospitality. Intentional hospitality. You will have a place, whether it's a small place or a big place, doesn't matter. Invite people into your home. Be intentional about it. So invite and accept invitations to other people's homes. Become part of the hospitality circuit. Celebrate special days, birthdays, anniversaries, children's birthdays, whatever it is. Christians should be the biggest celebrators on this planet because we really have something to celebrate. Include food, of course, and music, videos, and games. And use the Bible, but you don't always have to reference that this is from the Bible, because early on people might be turned off. Just give them well-chosen Bible verses without quoting the source. Once people get hungry for God's word, of course, then you want to introduce where you're finding these amazing quotes. Bless and pray for people, and invite local believers to be a part of any kind of Bible study group that you may have formed. The third part of this trilogy is discipleship. Once you are talking to people about your faith, the discipleship process has begun. You need to be praying for these people to be led into your life. You don't know who they are. Ask God to lead those people whom you will be able to disciple. You will have to invest time, not only in the friendships, but in the discipleship process. And introduce people to the teachings of Jesus. I have found this to be a very critical difference than preaching to them or reading from the Bible. Just introduce them to teachings of Jesus, how Jesus has taught us and how you have become a better person because you in your life have chosen to not only read about the teachings, but follow and obey the teachings of Jesus. And then learn how to apply them. How do I apply what Jesus is teaching me? These are simple ways to start a Bible study group, even if it's only one or two people. share books. I mean, if there are books that you think this person you're discipling would be interested in, make sure it is something that they are going to read. Don't just randomly give them Christian books. Learn enough about them so that you're able to give them a book that is aligned with their thinking. And make it a point to meet regularly people. Do you dare to pray for miracles? Somebody will tell you about somebody is sick. They'll say, does Jesus really heal? Are you up to it? Are you up to the challenge of praying in Jesus' name? These are things that you might have to think about ahead of time. And once you are there, you will have to follow God's leading. So, making disciples is a process. So the objective is make disciples that know how to make disciples. Remember, you are leaving, and usually sooner than you'd like. And make sure that those people you've discipled also know how to make disciples. So there you have it. You have relationships, hospitality, and discipleship, 3 rings. And it is the goal of those 3 circles to either start a discipleship movement or disciples, or even a house church, or be a part of a church. It's not complicated, is it? So just a little bit about Global Intent. We help people become tent makers. And when you contact us, we will help you through the process of getting out to the nations. We're not a sending agency. We mobilize, equip, and mentor people. We now have a YouTube channel, and we're adding content all the time, including all of our course content will eventually be loaded there. There's already about a dozen videos there. Check it out. We also publish a free e-journal, Tent Making Today. It is not tied to Global Intent. Global Intent is one of the supporters of it. We have other organizations and individual tent makers who write articles for us. Subscribe to it. It will remind you of your journey at a very quick read. You're probably not going to spend more than 10 minutes, maybe even not that much, reading each issue. So subscribe and you will receive it in your inbox. We also have classroom courses in US, Canada, Europe, and Africa. The next one is in Germany, and one after that is in Slovenia, and also one in Norway. But please go and check that on the website that I will give you. So we have so far trained tent makers from 58 countries who have gone to 91 countries. 95% of those countries are closed to traditional missions. So tent making today is being read very widely. Please become one of the readers. So you just go to tentmaking.today and you will find it there and the subscribe button. If there's a book that you want to read, it's written by one of our course alumni, Working Abroad with a Purpose. It is an excellent book on how to prepare. Glenn Deckert has done a great job, and we highly recommend this book. It's available online in many different locations. I want to give you my free book that I have written. I've traveled to 55 countries in my life, and through those travels, I have had the joy and privilege of winning people to Jesus from many different cultures and beliefs. And the book basically just touches on how Jesus is relevant across many cultures. It is a book that's available as a PDF for you to download. Feel free to share it, give it to your unsaved friends, give the link to your unsaved friends, or download it and send it to them. If there's someone in your life who is resistant to the gospel, consider sending them this very short book. It shouldn't take you a half an hour to read. It is deliberately made into very short chapters to keep the reader going. And it's available on that website. So the takeaway here is it's not a sin to travel. It's not a sin to love traveling. It's not a sin to go south for the winter. You're not doing something that God frowns upon. You're doing something you love, and God wants us to feel His pleasure while we do the things that we love. Just continue to do that, and just please always see and figure out, how can I bring Jesus into my journeys, into my travel. The nomadic lifestyle is a platform for the gospel. You have such incredible opportunities. I want to see a whole wave of missional nomads going out, working all over the place. Just simply that they can bring the gospel with them, but also to enjoy the travels, enjoy the cultures, enjoy the foods, enjoy everything that comes with it, enjoy the beaches, enjoy the warmth, which most Canadians are very glad to avoid in the winter season. Work abroad, be intentional with your faith. Missional snowbirds, that's a term that I've just coined. Are you up for it? I'm going to be doing another video just for missional snowbirds because I've come to realize that so many Christian people go south and to warm places for the winter. Here where I live, I know at least a dozen people in very close place. They go to Arizona, they go to Belize, they go to Florida, they go to many places, and even those places, there are people who need to hear the gospel message. However, if you're being really intentional, you can go to countries where the gospel is not widely available. So there you saw that Canada goose flying south. So as you travel, make disciples. I want to encourage you to attend a tent-making course that will prepare you to do the mission part well. Like I said, we have run those courses in many countries. We have had incredible stories we continue to hear incredible stories of people making a big difference in many countries in the world. The course is only 4 days long. It's very intense, and you will be with like-minded people. You will hear from some of the really, really great teachers, very international group of teachers. And so just go to tentmaking.today/events, and you will always see the new events that are coming up. Now, due to the circumstances of 2020, we have also launched through Tent International, we have launched online training at all levels. So please check that out. It'll also be at the tentmaking.today/events. Online is an excellent alternative to attending a classroom. So that way you have no reason not to get trained before you go. So my prayer for you is that you will live wisely and well, shining brilliantly like the cloudless, star-strewn night skies, and put others on the right path to life, and thus glow like stars forever. So again, you can download the session presentation or send me an email. It's easier if you just send me an email with all your questions. And here are the links. I will leave that up as I close. You can, like I said, if you get the copy of the presentation, you will also get those links. But I will leave it up for a moment there in case you want to write something down. Let me just tell you a short story of a missional nomad who went for a very short time just to teach English. He just wanted to have a summer experience before he went to university. He wanted to make some money. He wanted to have an overseas experience, and he thought it would be just a good way to finish his high school years to go to a different country and teach English, because that was something he thought he could do. He ended up in Asia, and his students ended up being almost the same age as him. So of course there was an initial friendships that were developed, and he started playing soccer with them after school and going to the beach with them and playing volleyball and just doing things that teenagers like to do. Now, he had never won anyone to Christ in his home country. He had never shared his faith in a meaningful way. So to call him a missionary would have been a stretch. But you know, God had different plans. His students were so intrigued with having a foreign friend and a teacher, English teacher as a friend. Obviously, many of them wanted to hang around with him to get even more English lessons for free. But you know, his circle of friends grew and grew, and they started inviting him to their circles. They started inviting him to meet their parents, and their parents were very excited at this young man who was teaching their children English. Before he realized it, his circle of friends was much larger than it was ever back home. And people started asking him if he believed in God. This was not a restricted nation, but it was a nation where the police were watching and making sure that nothing was being done outside of the laws. You were not allowed to bring any new thoughts or new politics or any kind of new thinking that was against the government's rules. So he had to be a little bit careful. But people started asking about his faith, and since they asked questions, it wasn't that difficult for him to respond. He had good answers. He'd grown up in a church. He'd gone to Sunday school. He knew the stories of Jesus. He knew what Jesus' teachings were. And he surprised himself at how much he really knew when people were asking him good questions. Before long, people started asking where they could find a Bible, and he had figured out a way where they could themselves get a Bible so that he was not seen as the person who was giving out Bibles, because that would have been illegal for him. Some of them were actually downloadable as apps. So people started reading, and people started coming with questions and more questions. And before he realized it, he was having a Bible study in various homes and with various students and even their parents. To make a long story short, these students started coming to Christ. They wanted to accept Jesus, and he was overwhelmed at how many of them wanted to become Jesus followers from what he thought was very weak witness. And he was only too happy to be able to show them who Jesus was and introduce them and lead them into a relationship with Jesus. The children would tell their parents what happened. The parents would come and ask for Bibles. They would come and ask questions about his faith because they had seen the change in their children. And we are talking about a 3-month time here, because his contract was only for 3 months. At the end of that 3 months, over 100 people had given their lives to Jesus. Now, the good news was that there were other tent makers in the area who also had Bible studies that they had started. So before leaving, he was able to introduce all these newborn believers to these long-termers who were in the country. There were also some covert local churches already in function, so there was definitely a place for these newborns to continue in their new faith. The point here is, we like to look at missionaries as the big heroes of our life because we know they're so holy, and wherever they go, people come to Christ, and it is very easy for them to win people to Jesus, to disciple them, to start churches. Because, of course, when we get a missionary speaking, we hear only these great stories, and they have only a limited time to tell you a story that might have taken 7 years. So it sounds like they are supermen and superwomen of God. Well, in my mind, they of course are. But that does not exclude the many people who don't see themselves as missionaries, who don't see themselves as qualified. It does not exclude you from being a witness for Jesus. So I want you to consider, in this new era where much of the work is being done remotely, and it's increasing by incredible amounts, to continue to look for opportunities overseas while you do your work. I just helped one young lady move from her city where she had her job, as she wanted to live somewhere warmer. At first, her company was reluctant to let her work remotely, but in the end, because of how things happened in 2020, they allowed her to work and allowed her to move to a much warmer place where she is hoping to do ministry among the people that she lives with. So please consider this as a valid way to do missions for the vast number of believers who have never considered missions, who have never felt qualified. Allow God to perform a miracle when you are out there to serve Him. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please, if you have questions, send me an email, ari@intent.org. I will be happy to respond to them. I will not add you to any mailing lists. Even Tent Making Today, if you subscribe to it, you can unsubscribe from any issue. We will never ever ask you to stay. We would like that you would like our YouTube channel. That would help us to get some more traction and get more interest in having the YouTube channel pop up in the various places on the internet. So please do that for me, and I would appreciate very much to see those numbers at our YouTube channel go up slightly because of this seminar. May the Lord bless you, and thank you for your time.